Alright guys, so welcome back to Rydeus-The channel. This video is entitled Forming Your Next Group for Class Projects, and it is intended to support students in forming effective groups towards productive outcomes for their group projects. Many students claim that working as part of a group provided them with some of their worst experiences during their undergraduate studies. Some even pointed out that although they were in a group, they felt as if they were doing everything on their own. The reality is there are good practices and not so good practices when forming groups for class projects. So in this video, we'd look at both. Now there are pros and cons for being part of a group. Some of the pros include improve understanding of what is required and increase ideas towards achieving objectives. There is division of work, and the division of work makes the project easier on each student. That's a fact, that's a positive. Individual students are challenged to contribute by their peers. So if it were an individual assignment, you would not be so challenged. If you feel to remain lazy, you could be lazy. If you feel to underperform, you could underperform, but as part of a group, you are challenged to contribute by your peers. And the increased demands placed on students allow for personal growth to take place. And students are often required to expand their comfort zone, particularly in terms of interpersonal skill development. So there are numerous benefits to working as part of a group. Also, you can capitalize on the diversity, the difference of individuals, the difference of ideas that each person would bring to the table. And it also provides an opportunity to form new relationships or friendships and expand one's social network. And there's also the capacity for greater satisfaction of members. So there's this need for belonging that individuals may have. You could feel good because you belong to a group. There's a need for achievement. You would be working with a group to achieve specific things. There might be a need for to experience leadership roles, to have the experience of being a leader. A group provides that. So there are several benefits to working as part of a group. But notwithstanding that, there are also disadvantages to working as part of a group. Some of the costs include some people may simply prefer alone. There are some individuals that simply enjoy themselves working by themselves. So there would be a disadvantage for an individual who is so inclined. And then there's what we call the Johari window challenge, or the Johari window challenges. We will talk about the Johari window in a bit. There's also challenges at the various stages of team formation. We will talk about that in a bit, which also serves as a disadvantage for group work. There's also social loafers or free riders, those individuals who would just be part of the group to get the marks that the group would get, but not necessarily interested in doing the work that the group has to do. So they may identify a student who is interested in getting a good mark, who has the ability to do the work well, and just join a group with that individual with no intention of pulling their weight. Or some may say, you know what, everybody in the group is looking for a good mark, so I'm part of the group, I would get the same mark, I don't have to do the same work as everybody. That's called the social loafers or free riders. And then of course you have conflicting values or ethics of team members. So some team members may have a value system that says they're going to do the least amount of work they could get away with. And they may be in a group with persons who are extremely solid and want to do the absolute best they can. Some persons may have a value system or a work ethic where they leave everything for last minute, and then they hustle things down and not necessarily do the best quality project. So there would be this conflict of values or this conflict of work ethic that would also take place, which could serve as a disadvantage to being a member of the group. There's also what we term as the coordination cost, the cost of meeting. And the cost may not necessarily be financial. The cost could be in terms of an opportunity cost, or it could be in terms of the use of time. So Persons would use their time differently. Some persons may prefer to relax on the weekend, when that may be the only time that all group members could meet. Some people may prefer to make some money on afternoons by giving lessons, or doing beauty things with their friends, their peers, and the group would be meeting at sessions like these. Some people may want to work Uber, and the group may be meeting, and it might serve as an inconvenience. So there's a coordination cost as well. There may also be difficulty in sharing of duties or sharing the task equally. So some persons may have simple tasks, some may have very demanding tasks, and persons may not necessarily see it as something that's inevitable, but view it as something that's unfair. There's also there's also discounted individual recognition. So it doesn't matter who pull the most load or who carries the group the most, the group will get the same mark, or the group will get the same credit. So the individual effort put in by some individuals may not necessarily get the recognition that they would like. Also, there's restriction of creativity. So somebody may want to go all out and bring the project to a creative end, and some persons may not necessarily be of that nature. There will also be decision-making processes, and these decision-making processes may take longer than persons care to. So there are lots of disadvantages to working as part of a group, just as there are advantages to working as part of a group. And one of the major disadvantages you could find as well is individuals' attitude or behavior could be disruptive of the workflow, stemming from persons just bringing in their assignments late, stemming from persons wasting time in group projects, stemming from long arguments because of the kind of individual that they are, and all these things would take away from productivity. But notwithstanding the disadvantages, the net effect is group project or group work, working as part of a team, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, because it produces higher quality ideas, it divides the work, provides social facilitation. So many organizations, notwithstanding the challenges of group work or committee work or teamwork, are going in the direction of teams. And because of that, a student's university experience must include working as part of a team. You must be prepared to work as part of a team. You must have the experience. You must know the challenges in working as part of a team. One of the things we want to talk about is issues at the various stages of team formation. And one set of research talks about forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Those are the various stages of team formation. And there's the Johari window, which I mentioned on the previous slide, the challenges associated with the Johari window. Now, this is a picture here of the model, the Johari window. And what it says, when persons are coming together for the first time, there are 4 quadrants that explain the dynamics in relation to that coming together. And this is important for you to understand. There's the open self, the blind self, the hidden self, and the unknown self. The open self, as you could see from the model, it says that which is known to you and that which is known to the other members of the group. So there would be information that you know about yourself, and there would be information that the other members of the group would know about you. That's called the open self. There's also the blind self, and the blind self would be information that is known to others but not necessarily known to you. It's blind to you. You don't know. You're not aware. For example, I don't know the sound of my voice. I don't know how my voice actually sounds to you. So I have a sense of how my voice would sound to me, but it's not that I'm hearing it on the outside. I'm hearing it partially on the inside. I might think I have a very soothing voice, a decent voice for lecturing, and persons may think that my voice is annoying. I may think that I explain things in the simplest way, and persons may feel differently about that I complicate things. But that's not known to me, but it's perceived by others. And that's the blind self. And then there's the hidden self, a part of myself that I don't want others to know about. It's known to me, but it's unknown to others by my deliberate intent. Let's just say there are certain things about me that I don't want others to know. And that is what is called the hidden self. And then there's the unknown self, that information that you don't know about yourself, information that others don't know about you, information that you would only come to know by different kinds of experiences you may challenge yourself to engage in. So when you challenge yourself to engage in certain kinds of experiences, you begin to learn things about yourself. In the early stages, that is called the unknown. So when the group is just forming, the open self is likely to be the smallest quadrant or the smallest part of the window, because there would be things that there will be few things that others know about you because you're just coming to meet each other. There will be few things that they know about you. And because there are few things that they know about you, there's an increased potential for conflict or challenges, or asking persons to do things that they're not comfortable with, or asking persons to do things that they're not good at, because you hardly know about each other. So there would be potential, huge potential for conflict. And once the group is formed, storming is likely to take place with the group. And if this storming is not well managed, it's likely that the entire experience of the group would be horrible. People would feel badly, people would not contribute, people would begin to bad talk each other, people would not necessarily focus on the objectives that the group is intended to achieve, but focus on personality clashes and conflict. So one of the means by which it is suggested that you get the open quadrant as big as possible is that you begin to have conversations. So you have things like icebreakers where you get to learn about each other. You have people asking questions. What do you think about me? What do you think about my voice? Do I have a good voice for lecturing? And you get feedback from others. You start to disclose more of yourself rather than keep more of yourself hidden. So people get to know about your likes, your dislikes, your preferences, your strengths, your weaknesses, those things that you are best disposed to take advantage of. So you have to get this part out of the way before the group could actually begin to perform at its best. Now let's look at the various stages of team formation. In forming your group for your group project, or in forming your team, one of the things you need to do is be absolutely clear on the goals of the group or the vision of the group. So there must be a collective vision that everybody buys into. You could begin by saying, our vision is to ensure that everybody in this group passes this course with an A. So we're coming together as a group, and our vision is everybody must pass this course with an A. We would have specific goals. These are our goals. In terms of the group project, everyone must do well. Everyone must do their part. Everyone must do their part on time. Everyone must do their part to the best of their ability. These are core values that would allow the group to perform well and achieve their goals and the vision that they intended to. Now, depending on what the group is coming together to achieve, there would be a specific requirement for knowledge, skills, abilities, and other attributes. So what are we required to know? Who has knowledge in that area? Those are some of the criteria that we should think about when we're getting persons for our group. Who has knowledge in the area that we're looking to investigate? Who has certain kinds of skills that we're required to have? Maybe presenting skills, maybe proofreading skills. Who has certain kinds of abilities, or abilities, for example, to do research, ability to stay up all night and until we get things right. Other attributes, there would be other things that would be required. Maybe somebody is required to have transportation. Maybe somebody is required to be a part of a particular network. You need to take these things into consideration when forming your group and the level of professionalism a person would bring to this space. All these things you need to take into consideration, and if you do not, it's likely that you're going to have conflict when the storming phase of the group formation comes along. A lot of us, we form groups simply on the basis of somebody that we know, somebody that we live close to, somebody that we could get a lift to go home with, somebody that we've been friends from a previous group or a previous school or something to that effect. If you really want to get a good grade, a good mark on your group project, you need to have persons who have the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities required to do well, and they are prepared to bring a level of professionalism to the space. Also, we could talk from the perspective of not only task-specific concerns, where you need to have a set of knowledge, skills, and abilities. There are socio-emotional concerns or interpersonal concerns, the concerns of the various members of the group, the dynamics that would take place between the various members. So there's something called the Big Five personality trait. And we're not going to talk about it in this video. I'll probably do a separate video talking about the Big Five personality traits, Theory X versus Theory Y, organizational, citizenship, behavior, achievement, motivation. But these are things that you need to consider. So very simplistically, on a superficial level, the Big Five personality traits talk about openness. The members of the team bring a level of openness to the conversation. If they are not open, they are likely to be inflexible, which would lead to a lot of arguments. Conscientiousness. Conscientiousness deals with the ability to use time in an intelligent manner. To my group members, are my group members prepared to be conscientious, to use time intelligently so we can achieve our goals? The other aspect of the Big Five personality traits is extroversion. Being comfortable having conversations with others, being comfortable to be a leader of the group, being comfortable to be one of the followers of the group, being comfortable to be sociable and have the kinds of conversations that are important for the group dynamics to produce the outcomes that we're after. And the other quality in the Big Five is agreeableness. Am I a grumpy person? Am I a person that cannot be approached? Am I a person who is perhaps vexed all the time, mad all the time, or overburdened? And the final of the Big Five personality traits is it's a kind of big word, but it simply means nervousness or anxiety levels, but it actually is called neuroticism. And neuroticism is simply that. Am I a person who is anxious easily, who is nervous easily, who gets angry easily, who is angry 1 minute and then smiling the next minute? Or am I a person with a calm demeanor that can manage the pressures required being a part of the group? So you need to know the individuals that you're inviting to your groups. And of course, I talked about the icebreakers. Icebreakers would give you a clear sense of who these individuals are. And if you detect these kinds of qualities, you need to discuss it early and set core values to treat with them. Theory X versus Theory Y talks about some people would do the least they could get away with. So if they have a part of the group project, they may simply copy and paste their part and send it to the rest of the group for them to do the rest of the work. Whereas a Theory Y individual, they would demonstrate the level of interest needed and take their time and not just copy and paste, but go through the work and create something useful that the group could use in a finished format. OCB, it talks about organizational citizenship behavior, and as I mentioned, we'd probably discuss that in a complete video, but there are certain dynamics like altruism. Altruism is a willingness to help each other. So not because this is not my section and I've already done my section, it also means I have the interest that I am willing to help others. Some of my peers may be having difficulty. I may come across some work that could help another group member in their part. I'm willing to do that part as well. That's altruism. There's also courtesy, which is part of the organizational citizenship behavior. I'm treating others the way I would like to be treated. I'm treating others in a way that it demonstrates that common respect that I have for my fellow group member. There's also sportsmanship, and sportsmanship says, you know what, even though there are aspects of the group that I do not like, even though I might not like individuals within the group, even though I might not agree with what the leader is saying, I am still going to do my part. I'm going to be a good sport. I'm going to do my part regardless of the way I feel. That's sportsmanship. So again, conscientiousness is part of organizational citizenship behavior, and we talked about that in the big 5 personality traits. Achievement motivation is simply, we are in this group because we want to achieve. We want to achieve the vision. We want to achieve the goals that we set out to achieve. So you need to not only look for persons who have the knowledge, the skills, the ability to do well. You need to look for persons who will bring the right kinds of attributes to allow for the group to complete their task well. Those are some of the things that you need to consider when forming the group. If we take these things into consideration, we are likely to get a better quality of group dynamics. So we talk about the second stage, storming. So when the group is formed, they just come together. We said the open quadrant would be quite small, and because the open quadrant is small, you would have some storming. And in the storming phase, you need to have emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is that ability to hold your tongue, if we could say it that way, to not allow things to escalate, to be aware of yourself and how you're feeling, be aware of the way you behave when you feel a particular way, and be aware of the way your behavior would impact others or impact the quality of interaction amongst group members. I hope I said that clear. I'll try to say it again. So emotional intelligence talks about self-awareness. I must be aware of myself and my emotions. I must be aware of how I behave when I feel a particular emotion. So for example, if I am annoyed by my group leader, and when I'm annoyed, I simply not answer my phone and just stay away from the group, I must be aware that that's one of my qualities. I must also be aware that that quality is not a good one because it would not produce good outcomes for the group members. So the second element is self-regulation. So I am aware of myself. I would regulate myself to behave intelligently to produce the outcomes that are useful for the group. So it's self-awareness, self-regulation, and of course social awareness. I must know how my behavior would impact others. I must know what gets my leader annoyed, what gets my peers annoyed. I must know these things, and I must use the information that I have to behave in a way that would cause the relationship to be a productive one. So emotional intelligence is very important. You may have to sacrifice your sense of self for that which is required for the group to do well. And of course, conflict management is extremely important within the storming phase. And we will talk about conflict management slightly further down. Norming. We form, then we storm, we have our conflict, we must normalize. And in terms of normalizing, we just talk about that Johari window. Use the Johari window to try to disclose things about ourselves, to try to ask for feedback, to do different kinds of projects together, to learn about each other, share things about ourselves that would get us annoyed. So if we use the Johari window application, we could begin to normalize faster. We also talk about icebreakers. So you have some icebreakers. For example, the group just formed, let's play 21 questions. And you form a list of 21 questions and everybody has to answer them. And you listen to the answers and you get a sense of how individuals would behave. And in terms of norming, try to build discussions on several of the issues from the storming stage. So you're realizing that persons are having these kinds of arguments, these kinds of differences. You build that into your icebreaker and you try to build discussions around them so you could normalize as quickly as you can. And then performing, we talk about that. Core values, try to have a set of core values. So our core values would be, for example, professionalism. And what is professionalism? Professionalism is possessing those qualities that operate in the interests of the group. We are always operating in the interests of the group, in the group's interests, in terms of realizing our vision. So we're not going to be personal about things, we're going to be professional about things. We're going to possess those qualities that demonstrate that we have the maturity for this undertaking. Solid work ethic, that's a core value. Everybody must do their absolute best and not try to do the least that they could. Citizenship over satisficing, not doing the least you could, but working together, supporting each other to produce the best outcomes. And team over self. So if we have to make certain kinds of sacrifices, we're prepared. So we have to identify our core values which will allow us to perform in the best possible way. And of course, the final component here is adjourning. So we've come together with the right kinds of qualities, the right kinds of skills, the right kind of attitude and temperament. We managed to overcome the storming phase. We normalized, we performed, we did well, we achieved our objectives. And of course, now we could go our separate ways. And there are certain things that we could do to make partying decent. So recognize certain members who would have contributed more, certain members who would have gotten things right when the rest of the group struggle. We could talk about that, and just if it's just a round of applause or a pat on the back, we could do that. Debriefing at a personal level and at a group level, you could ask yourself what worked, what didn't, and why. What was good about our experience, what was bad about our experience, and of course, looking forward, how are we going to do things differently? So those are challenges at various stages of team formation. And once we get a sense of those challenges and we make a decent effort using what we just discussed to overcome the challenges, we should be fairly okay. But notwithstanding all of that, there would be issues where group members, one or more members, may not necessarily do the work that they're supposed to do. And we talked about conflict management in treating with the storming, and I said we would spend a little more time talking about conflict management. Now, some group members may be loafers, some may not be pulling their weight, some may have difficulty simply because of Murphy. And when I say Murphy, Murphy's law. How it goes, whatever could go wrong usually would go wrong at the worst possible moment. So some people would just run into difficult times, and maybe their computer crashed, and they would say their computer crashed and you would not necessarily believe. But there are things that could happen with group members at different points in times, and we would want to make accommodation for that. But in any event, it may become necessary to confront undesirable behaviors of group members. And we want to be able to confront the undesirable behaviors of our group members without being confrontational or without being attacking towards the members. We don't want to attack members, we don't want to confront members, but we want to address those challenges that we are having. And there are different responses and approaches to conflict. Some of us could respond with a passive response, which is less than what is called for in the situation. So we could just ignore persons not doing what they're supposed to do, not pulling their weight. A passive response would be to turn a blind eye to that. Or we could engage in an aggressive response where we are more than what the situation calls for. We are going overboard. We are doing too much. We are overdoing. Right, we're getting angry, we're having outbursts, we are yelling at individuals. So that's an aggressive response. A passive response is not useful, nor would an aggressive response be useful. And then there are some persons that would engage in a passive aggressive response, which they would simply say, you know what, I'm not going to say anything to John, I'm not going to say anything to Jane, I'm simply not going to give her the mark. I'm going to recommend that she does not get the same mark. I'm going to recommend that he does not get the same mark as everybody else. I'm just going to stay quiet, let them continue to do nothing, and that's what will happen. So that's a passive aggressive response. Passive because you prefer to do nothing. Aggressive because you're operating outside the interests of your own group member. We want to have an assertive response to conflict. And an assertive response is treating the situation in the manner it deserves to be treated. Being willing to confront the situation in the manner it deserves to be confronted without being confrontational to our group members or without confronting the individual themselves. And in doing that, there are several approaches or strategies. We talk about the passive approach, which is trying to avoid the conflict altogether and doing nothing, and we say that is not as useful. An approach might be accommodation, and an accommodation is simply, if we know something specific about the individual, something specific about the situation, we may be able to say, you know what, Jane is not pulling her weight, but I'm going to accommodate the fact that she didn't deliver at this point in time. I'm going to have a conversation and hope that she improves. And we'll talk about how you can have that conversation in a bit. There's also compromise. So an approach that we could use to treat with the conflict is to compromise. So maybe the one or more group members may think that they have too much to contribute. There are too many demands placed on them. So we could compromise and say, hey, you know what? Instead of doing all of this, here's a reduced workload. I would do a part of it. You would do a part of it. We make that kind of compromise, and we could get back on track to achieving the goals and the vision of the group. That's another approach to dealing with the conflict. Or you could dominate the conflict, so the group leader could make a decision. I am in charge here. This is what has to be done, and I'm not flinching. I'm not going away from it. You have to do your work, and this is the time frame, and you either do it or you get thrown out of the group, or I'm going to inform the lecturer that you do not get the mark that everybody else gets. So you could dominate the situation, and sometimes it may be necessary to behave that way. But one of the worst things you could do is to attempt to dominate the situation when maybe a compromise or accommodation, or even the fifth mode of approach, collaboration. Collaboration is speaking in terms of each party's needs, interests, and concerns or challenges. So you could say, like, you did not submit your work when you were supposed to, and you could dominate that situation. Or you could simply say, let's talk about what happened. What are the concerns? What are your challenges? You could speak in terms of a person's concerns or challenges before you use the approach of trying to dominate the situation. Good? And notwithstanding all of that, there may be a situation where you may have to communicate with your group member. And as we attempt to bring this conversation here to a close, this is a method that I'm suggesting that you can try in drawing the attention of a group member, drawing their attention to the fact that they are behaving in a way that is compromising the vision or compromising the quality of outcome or results that the group is after. So you could do it in writing, you could do it verbally if you like. You could say, all right, Jane, here's the issue. You are behaving less than professional within this group. One of our core values is that we would all be professional. One of our core values is that we would have a high work ethic, and you are not behaving professional, and your work ethic leaves a lot to be desired. And let me give you some proof of that. Last Wednesday, we were supposed to have a meeting from 1. You never showed up. For the meeting on Thursday, you were there 45 minutes late. For the meeting on Friday, you were unprepared. So what you have done there, you've identified the issue that you want to deal with the particular group member. You have provided the evidence that they're behaving in a particular way. And now you want to just say, make it look like I'm not against you. So you want to express empathy. So here's the thing, Jane. I know you're probably overworked. I know you're swamped at your job. I know you're having issues at home. I know all these things. I know the demands of academia may put you at some kind of disadvantage given everything that is going on in your life. I understand that. And you may even want to go as far as say, I want to commend you on your strength in terms of continuing and at least making an effort. You could say all these things. But the consequences of you not being a part of our group, not delivering the work at a decent quality that you're supposed to be delivering, those consequences mean that we are compromising the results that the entire group would get. This group mark carries about 25% or 30%, and if we compromise, we will actually be ensuring that all of us do not get an A in this course. So you make them aware of the consequences of their behaviors, and then you give them an action that you'd like them to take, or a prescription. You prescribe the way we can do things. So here's how I think we could get things back on track. I think you could make your absolute best effort. If you're unable to, you could send your work in advance with an explanation. We have social media. You could send a voice note. You could send a video. You could send your work. So you now come up with prescriptions such that whatever challenge Jane might be having would not necessarily impact the performance of the group. So guys, I wanted to do a video that was about half-hour long. I see I've gone over by about 6 minutes or so. But this video is in relation to challenges that students have in terms of group project, particularly within a university setting. So if you have gotten this far in the video, I know you would get some decent results if you attempt some of the things that I've been suggesting. So again, all the best in your endeavors. Hope that the information was useful. All the best.